And the city of 9 gates is the self. So Paramatma or the Purusha is the indweller in the Puri, the city. And Suktam literally means well said. Su means well, auspicious. Uktam means said or expressed or spoken. So Purusha Suktam is an exposition of the Supreme Purusha. Now the word Purusha is so significant. There are more than one Sanskrit derivations for the word Purusha. Another derivation is, in fact, the root word of Purusha is pru. Pru means something that is complete, something that is filled. So Purnat Purusha, Purnat means that which is complete, that which is Purna, fulfilled. That is Purusha. So the ultimate objective, the ultimate purpose of we studying the Purusha Suktam is to experience that Purusha, the cosmic being, that is all pervading. At the same time, it is reveling in the city, that is our own self. So the Purusha Suktam, it is a collection of mantras, which is different from the slokas. Mantra, as you know, is much more potent, much more impactful than the slokas. In fact, the Shruti, as you know, is Apaurusheya. Apaurusheya means something that was not written by a particular person, as opposed to Smriti. Smriti means what is remembered. Shruti means what is heard. I'm sure most of you are familiar with these terms and the meanings of it. So what is heard is that Shrutis were revealed in the minds of those giant spiritual stalwarts during the meditation in the deep recesses of Himalayan jungles, as they were basking in God consciousness. So these Shrutis were revealed in the minds of those sages. That is why it is called Shruti, which means that which is heard. So Shrutis are also called Apaurusheya, meaning it is not written by a particular person. Whereas Smritis are remembered, which means all the commentaries upon the Shruti. Let's say when a Swami or a Guru writes a commentary on Purusha Suktam, it will be called Smriti. So all the Puranas, epics, they were all Smriti. They are all Smriti. Whereas Purusha Suktam is Shruti, which means that which is heard. It's revealed. So the word Purusha is a very familiar term for all of us, because even in vernacular, Purusha means a male is referred to as Purusha. Now you got to understand that the word Purusha here is not the opposite of Stri. The meaning or the implication is much deeper, much beyond. We'll analyze. All right, it is that which is complete, Purna, is Purusha. And it's also important because the Purusha Suktam is found in all the 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. Whereas other Suktams are not found in all the four Vedas. So more than one reason, this Purusha Suktam is considered extremely important. In fact, there is also a belief that, if you chant Rudram, Chamakam, and Purusha Suktam, it is almost a direct passport to moksha, direct ticket to Brahmaloka, as it were. So it is a significant mantra, the Suktam. Now, brothers and sisters, every one of us engage in chanting the mantra. In fact, all of you have been learning the Purusha Suktam, and we are also learning. And those of you who may not know, I'm sitting here in Durban, South Africa. And for last 6 or 8 months or so, also, my family has been learning the Purusha Suktam as well, and it is incredibly impactful. I'm talking about just learning the chanting of the mantra. Now, why learning or chanting the mantra is important? As you know, there are various dimensions to simply chanting of the mantra itself. I'm not talking even about the understanding. That goes, of course, goes well beyond. Chanting involves about various dimensions, various aspects, or its impact is at different levels of our personality. First of all, the importance of chanting is, number one, the meter involved in the specific chanting. Meter, as you know, it's based on the syllables and the emphasis that you place while chanting the mantras. And all of you have been experiencing, when you learn to chant the Purusha Suktam, how important it is to spell out. Even when we attend the chanting classes, we know that Ramagaru emphasizes the importance of pronunciation. And as you know, he's a perfectionist. And it's so crucial. So the meter. Number two, the intonation. The intonation of the mantra impacts the heart. Then the meaning, the intellectual meaning impacts the head. And of course, when we chant the mantra, which many students of Purusha Suktam or any mantras tend to miss, when we chant the mantra, you are unconsciously practicing pranayama. It impacts the 5 pranas of your personality. As I mentioned, the meaning of the mantra, the word mantra means trayate iti mana mantra. That means that which protects your mind is mantra. Trayate iti mana. That which protects your mind is mantra. So, do you mean to say that by merely chanting the mantra, the Purusha Suktam, does it protect your mind? Yes, it does. And it is even proven by the scientific community. The mere impact, the very impact of the very chanting itself impacts our personality, level of understanding. Now we are trying to explore the intellectual, the spiritual meaning behind the verses. In fact, what the ancient musicologists have done is that, talking about ancient times, the musicologists studied the human personality. They analyzed, they observed the human personality, and based on the human personality, they discovered the personality is composed of 7 chakras, as you know. And in order to, chakras are the spiritual centers. In order to stimulate the spiritual centers corresponding to those 7 chakras, they discovered 7 swaras or sapta swaras. So when we chant the Purusha Suktam, it is a confluence of all these swaras. So it is actually stimulating our spiritual center, the 7 swaras, as you know, sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, da, ni. So to be true to the meaning of the word mantra, that which protects your mind is mantra. Years ago, I've heard of a research that was done in the US, and also it was done in the Indian Institute of Medical Science in Delhi. That is, I'm talking about the chanting of, the impact of chanting. There were two sets of patients suffering from certain diseases, illness. And both of them were administered the same treatment, same diet, everything remaining the same. Whereas one set of patients were also made to chant and listen to the Vedic mantras. And the same set of patients were exposed to the spiritual discourses. And they found that the impact of medicine, the curing or the healing, was much faster compared to the other set of patients who were administered just the medical treatment. So the cure found to be much faster. So when we chant the Purusha Suktam, it stimulates certain healing feelings. There are 2 types of feelings. There are healing feelings, then there are ill feelings. So when we chant the Purusha Suktam, sometimes we may not even be conscious of it. How it stimulates the healing feeling. What are the healing feelings? Some of the healing feelings are gratitude, forgiveness, compassion, kindness. These are all the healing feelings that are stimulated. Just chanting the mantra. That is why the mantras or the musical notes have impact not only the human mind, even upon the animals. In fact, many years ago, I'm putting the clock back over 20 years before, I was taken to the stud farm in Pune. Pune, there's a big stud farm. It was the largest stud farm in Asia, but it's no more. There are other stud farms owned by the Poonawalla group. And it was a very, very interesting visit in the stud farm. The program that I was addressing was not very far from there. And then my organizer, invited me to join them to visit the stud farm. And the horses were made to listen certain specific music. So I asked the person who invited me, so why do you make them listen to music? And he didn't answer me. So he requested the authority there to switch off the music. They switched off the music and waited for half an hour while we were going around seeing other places. And they found when the music was switched off, the behavior of the horse was different compared to when the horses were listening to the music. That's why even snake charmers use the raga, Punnagavarali. to charm the snake. So it's not only for the human being, the impact of music, the impact of mantra, it is across all living kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, as well as the human kingdom. So the chanting of the mantra is important. Now we are going one step further, that is understanding the meaning. So when our head is empowered with the understanding, while the heart, our emotions are empowered with a lot of emotion or healing feeling, the confluence of the heart and the head happens. An amalgam, a blend of the heart and head. So far, what you have been learning is chanting of the mantra, which of course is fantastic. And I'm sure many of you are exposed to the meaning of the mantras also. But those of you who are not exposed to the meaning of the PURUSA SUKTAM, we have an opportunity to understand the meaning so that our head, our intellect is inspired by the understanding, while the heart is imbued with devotion and healing feeling. When the head and the heart is amalgamated, when there's a blend between the head and the heart, then our personality is inspired. At the moment, our personality is not fully inspired. Very often, heart is operating. Even in the spiritual field, when we engage in bhajans and kirtans and other religious activities, even yajna, as you will see, there's a lot of emphasis upon performance of yajna, the havan. Even when we perform the havan, our heart is operating. Our head is not inspired. So ideally, there must be the blend of the head and the heart. That is when you are inspired. At the moment, we are not often inspired because that energy doesn't manifest. When we are inspired, what happens is there is an explosion of energy in our personality. Remember, you and me as human beings, we are imbued with incredible energy, power, potential. But that ability and potential remain dormant because it is not being tapped. So here is the opportunity to inspire. So chanting of the mantra involves, number one, the meter. Number two, the intonation. Intonation affects the heart. What is intonation? Let me explain to you. When you see a person crying, you automatically know that the person is unhappy, sad. When the person is laughing, the person is happy. You don't need a training. All right. So the intonation or the inarticulate aspect of the mantra, there is articulate and inarticulate. Articulate aspect of the mantra need explanation. The inarticulate or the intonational aspect of the mantra need no training. Even a Russian, for example, who's never exposed to the PURUSA SUKTAM or the Vedic mantras, even when he listened to the chanting of the mantra, it makes an intonational impact on his personality. So just as when a person is laughing, we know that the person is happy. You don't need any specific training. Whereas the intellectual understanding requires training. And of course, as you know, the rules involved in chanting of the mantra, that is the varnam, the matra, the balam, the samam, the santanam, and the swara. And of course, the four swaras, udatta, anudattva, swarita, and dirgha swarita. So since all these aspects are involved in it, chanting of the mantra is extremely important. That is how it says that which protects your mind is mantra. Trayate iti mana mantra, that which protects your mind. So our effort here is to understand the deeper spiritual meaning of this celebrated epic. Now, as you know, every suktam, every Upanishad, every stuti begins with what we call as an invocation. Every Upanishad comes with its own invocation. In fact, generally, when we start the study of Bhagavad Gita or Bhajagovindam, some of you have attended the discourses on the Bhajagovindam. We begin with chanting the mantra Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Ubunatu Saviryam Karavavahai. That is always a common invocation that many gurus chant when they discourse, when they expound the Vedic mantras. But like many other, PURUSA SUKTAM has its own invocation. Now, I want to explain why the invocation. What is the purpose of invocation? The invocation mantra is chanted between the guru and the disciples to fine-tune our personality. Remember, you and me as human beings, we have two types of intellect, buddhi. We have two types of intellect, buddhi. The two types of intellects are called gross intellect and subtle intellect. It is called tikshna buddhi or gross intellect and sukshma buddhi or the subtle intellect. It's important for us to understand that distinction. What is sukshma buddhi and tikshna buddhi? Right? The tikshna buddhi or gross intellect, when we engage our faculty of reasoning or thinking, that is anything confined to the terrestrial world, when we engage our thinking ability, anything that is related to the terrestrial world, it is called tikshna buddhi or gross intellect. You can be a brilliant mathematician or a brilliant scientist in nuclear physics or any branch of science. But all those thinking, reasoning, analysis falls within the ambit of the gross intellect. The moment we cross the boundary, the precincts of the gross intellect and conceive the possibility of something transcendental, the supreme, it is called sukshma buddhi, the subtle intellect. And we are trying to understand the PURUSA, the supreme being. So we need to engage the sukshma buddhi or the subtle intellect. So the invocation is chanted to invoke the subtle intellect, sukshma buddhi. A person can be extremely brilliant in a particular branch of study, like I mentioned. Maybe brilliant, but that very same person, when he or she comes to understanding the PURUSA SUKTAM, you will find they're not able to tune into it. Why? Because they have a very powerful gross intellect, but a weak subtle intellect. So one can have a powerful gross intellect and yet a weak subtle intellect. And the converse is also true. A person can have a powerful, subtle intellect, that is Sukshma Buddhi, and a weak, gross intellect. So we need to sharpen our Sukshma Buddhi to be able to understand the message, or to be able to tune in, to feel the vibe of the Purusha Suktam. We need to invoke the subtle intellect. You know, it's like this. You can have a sharp axe, or you can have a sharp razor blade rather, beg your pardon. The use of razor blade and axe, you cannot switch the usage. For example, one day your razor blades are exhausted. In the morning when you want to shave, your razor blades are over. You threw the last one and there was nothing, is not available. And let's say your wife says, assuming, as a man, your wife says, no, I've got a very sharp axe. However sharp the axe is, you cannot use the sharpest of axe to have a shave, because the operation is very subtle. On the other hand, you want to chop branch of a tree in your yard. That is, the branch is stretching onto your house. All right, it's sort of disturbing the roof or whatever, and you want to chop it. You don't have an axe. If your wife were to tell you, why don't you use a blade, a razor blade? However sharp a razor blade is, you cannot use even the sharpest of razor blade to chop a tree. You cannot use the sharpest of axe to do a subtle operation like shaving. So you may have a brilliant gross intellect. You may have a brilliant academic track record. But if you want to understand a Shastra like Purusha Suktam, we need to invoke the subtle intellect. Therefore, the invocation mantra is chanted. And the gross intellect and subtle intellect is beautifully depicted in the symbolism of Lord Ganesha. Lord Ganesha, as you know, the elephant head with the human body. I'm only talking about, referring to one aspect of head of Ganesha, that is the trunk. The trunk represents buddhi, that is emanating from the big head, profound wisdom. The elephant's trunk represents the gross intellect and the subtle intellect at the same time. Why? Because the elephant's trunk has the unique ability to perform a gross function, like uprooting a tree from the ground. It can also perform a subtle function like picking up a needle from the floor. You try it. Try to pick up a needle that is fallen on the floor, your wooden floor or tile floor, and try to pick up the needle with your fingers. Difficult. But the elephant's trunk has got that unique ability to perform a gross function as well as a subtle function. You and me have got that intellect. So we need to invoke, because the concept is rather subtle. It is deep. And you got to tune the entire personality. And of course, we are also, by chanting the invocation, we are invoking the grace of Narayana Rishi. Because Purusha Suktam was revealed to Narayana Rishi, sage Narayana. So we are invoking the grace of sage Narayana, that we are undertaking this journey of understanding the Purusha Suktam, and understanding the Purusha Suktam is actually a journey within each one of us. You'll see it as we go along. And it also appeases the universe. And every Suktam Every mantra, every Upanishad begins by chanting the mantra Om. Why Om? We all do that. Almost every spiritual undertaking, we begin by chanting the mantra Om. Why Om? Om Tat Chai Om Tat Cham Yo Ravani Mahe. That's how the mantra starts, right? So why Om? As you know, the mantra Om is composed of the three syllables A, U, and Ma. A, U, A represents the waking state of consciousness. U represents the dream state of consciousness. And Ma represents the deep sleep state of consciousness. And the underlying substratum of all these three consciousness, taste of consciousness, is the supreme Purusha, the supreme reality. And Om also covers the entire range of sound. So when you chant the mantra Om, it begins with from the base of your throat, base of your lung, Om, and it culminates by closing your lips. So every sound is between these two extremes. So therefore, chanting the mantra covers the entire sound range of sound, and anybody can chant the mantra, a newborn to the oldest, even the mute. Everybody can express that mantra. And it's not only, by the way, Om is not a mantra belongs to Hindus only. Hindu sages and saints discovered it and made the good use of it. And they discovered it and presented to the world and showed us the impact of the mantra Om. In Christians, when they finish their prayer, they conclude by saying Amen. Muslims say Ameen, and we Hindus say Om. So when you say Amen or Ameen, it is a modified version of the syllable Om. And of course, it is the most suited mantra for meditation. It is the most appropriate mantra to practice meditation, because what is meditation? To define meditation, it is the art of keeping your mind to a single thought, to the exclusion of all other thought, under the supervision of the intellect. So to be able to keep your mind tuned to one single thought, one single point of concentration, mantra Om is the most appropriate, because it has no thought association. When you choose any other mantra, there's always some kind of thought association. Supposing you choose a mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or any mantra for that matter. There are many syllables involved in it. The potential for mind getting distracted is more in comparison to the mantra Om. So when you chant the mantra Om, the only thought association is the divinity. Whereas if you chant while meditation, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, as we are chanting, suddenly you're reminded of that old friend called Vasudeva. He borrowed, about 20 years ago, he borrowed $100 and he never returned it. And then that thought, the word Vasudeva triggers that thought, and it takes your mind for a long spin. Your mind could be chanting the mantra. I mean, your mouth could be chanting the mantra, but the mind has gone for a spin. Whereas when we chant the mantra Om, the potential for thought distraction is less in comparison to the others. Therefore, every mantra begins by invocation, and every invocation begins by chanting the mantra Om. Now we will enter into chanting the invocation.
Om Tachayyoravrimahe Gatui Yajnaya Gatui Yajnapadaye Devi Swastirastu Naha Swastirmanushyebhyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipade Shanchatushpade Om Shanti 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 Om.
You muted me. It says host muted you. All right. Om Tat Cham Yo Ravrini Mahe. Tat Sham. Tat refers to that. That auspicious. Tat means that. Sham means auspicious. Invoke that which we don't know. That refers to something beyond what is present, what is immediate. And that Sham, Tat Sham means that auspicious. We invoke that auspicious being, which is the foundation, the substratum of everything that happens in and around us. So we invoke that power, Tatsham, that auspicious. For what? Gatum Yajnaya. To complete this Yajna. In fact, as we go along, we'll realize that the whole universe is based on this Yajna, which is literally sacrifice. We'll analyze what they are. And Yajnapataye, Yajnapade, for whom Yajna is performed. The word Yajna, the root word for Yajna is Yaj. Yaj means sacrifice. Yajna means any action or any effort or anything that we do offered to something higher, something supreme, that is Yajna. Devi Swastirastunaha. We invoke God. For what? Devi Swastirastunaha. We invoke for Suasti, Iswasti, for our well-being. We are undertaking a very important journey. The effort requires a lot of concentration, focus, attention. It is like a very minute surgery that we are undertaking. A group of doctors. Very delicate surgery. The entire faculty and equipment has to be really, really fine-tuned. So we are invoking the blessings of God for our existence. And not only our existence, swastir manushebhyah. Not only me, but the entire humanity. Let goodness prevail not only in me, everywhere. Now, this is the beauty of Hindu prayers. You know, some of the mantras, when we use those mantras to pray, we are not just talking about the welfare of ourselves only. When we pray for the welfare of everybody. So not only me, not only my welfare as a spiritual seeker, the welfare of everybody, the whole humanity. So when we actually pray for the welfare of everybody, now that is the true prayer. Prayer is not praying for the welfare of oneself. In fact, once you understand this, you may want to recast our method of praying itself. Because many people that we know, when they're praying for oneself. Please look after me. Please take care of myself, my family, my business, my job, my whatever it is. But that is not really true prayer. It is a prayer, but there is a spelling mistake. And what is that? That is P-R-E-Y, prayer. Whereas true prayer is P-R-A-Y. So when we pray, we first pray for the welfare of everybody. Not only Manusha, Swastir Manushebha. Let the entire humanity be well off in every sense of the term. Because, remember, if the other people around and about us, other people in the world are not happy, you will not be happy. In fact, the Vedic sages and saints, thousands and thousands of years ago, has conceived what the modern scientists now beginning to realize. They realize the whole universe is so intricately interconnected. And then they coined the very potent term that every one of us use every now and then, that is called Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. That means the world is one family. Since the world is one family, we pray for the whole world, for the entire humanity, the society. Now, this is called the law of reciprocity. What is the law of reciprocity? When you genuinely wish for the welfare of others, you will be taken care of. When you truly wish for the welfare of others, then you will be taken care of. That is true prayer. So the invocation that we just chanted is demonstrating that we are praying for the welfare of all humanity. When we pray, just to digress a little bit from the invocation, you got to engage, or you got to bring in the thought of other people's welfare in your prayer. Let the society, especially in the scenario that the whole world is in, everybody need to pray for the whole world, not only for yourself, because the world need to heal. If good part of America, good part of South Africa, or whichever part of the world that you're sitting is infected with corona, will you be happy? No. So we need to pray for the whole humanity. And not only for humanity, that is called, by the way, the law of reciprocity. Whatever you wish for the other people, you get it. Whatever thoughts that you wish for the other people, if you wish other people pain, you will experience pain. If you wish happiness for the other people, you become happy. There's a saying, if you want to be happy for 1 hour, take a nap. If you want to be happy for 1 day, go for a picnic. If you want to be happy for 1 week, go for holidays. If you want to be happy for 1 month, get married. If you want to be happy for 1 year, inherit a fortune. Most people who inherited a huge fortune, their happiness did not last more than 1 year, because after 1 year, they were in a worse position than before they inherited the fortune. And if you want to be happy for a lifetime, wish happiness for other people. Wish blessing for the other people. Even your arch rival, your enemy. If you can genuinely, if you can from the bottom of your heart, if you can wish happiness, blessing, success for your arch rival, for your enemy, then truly you know how to pray. You must remember, you must think deeply. By we wishing happiness and blessing for other people, our rival, our enemy, what are we losing? Do we lose anything? Nothing, if at all, only gain. But our own individuality, our own ego prevents us from wishing blessings for the other people. And the result is we suffer. So he says, the entire Manusya, and not only Manusya, not only human being, what about the other creatures? The next line says, Urdhvam jijatu bheshajam. All right. That is, let all the animal be in peace. All right. Not only human being, all the animal and vegetable kingdom, welfare of all of those. That is the beauty of Hindu mantras. And he's specifying, what is he specifying? Shamno astu dupate sham chadushpate. That is the two-legged and the four-legged. The bipeds and the quadrupeds. Bipeds are the human and the quadrupeds are the animals. Truly, when we remember the house that you're living in, you're not the only one who's living in there. There are other insects, bacteria, many other creatures living there, right? Their happiness influences your happiness. Remember, one of the cities that I travel, one of the countries nearby in South Africa, in Southern Africa rather. I go there every year for discourse. This year I couldn't go because obviously the corona. And the gentleman that I stay with, a businessman, now every morning he doesn't start his day almost punctually 7:30 in the morning after the prayer, after he finished the bath, he finished yoga, pranayama. He's in his 80s, right now. And he begins the day by, he's a good singer, very good singer. He sings his favorite bhajans and a few shanti mantras, etc. And first time when I went to stay with him, and I continue to stay with him even now, it's about 17, 18 years now, I've been staying with him. He has the speaker, the sound system connected to the entire house. So when he's chanting or when he's singing, he switches on the sound, sings in the mic. And here he's the only one who's singing. So I asked him, why all this paraphernalia? Why you need to have the system extra? Why don't you just sing for yourself? Then he said, I'm not the only one who's singing here. I'm not the only one who's living here. I know your family there. No, not only the family, what about the other beings? And when you are chanting the mantra in your house, that chanting of the mantra impacts not only you or your family members, but all the living beings in your house. Their happiness is important. Their welfare is important for your welfare. Therefore, he says, Shamno astu dvipate sham chatushpate. All right. All four kingdoms, living kingdoms, mineral kingdoms, vegetable kingdom, human kingdom, animal kingdom, and human kingdom. Everything is covered, so it doesn't exclude anybody in prayer. And then it concludes by Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So generally, when we conclude the invocation by chanting Shanti, 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 you must have noticed that the first Shanti, we say Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The third Shanti is generally slightly less volume or mental whispers. The first Shanti is called Adi Daivikam, that is to appease the heavenly disturbances like the thunder, earthquake, storm, typhoon, flood, etc. The second Shanti is Adi Daivikam, the environmental disturbances. And The third Shanti in almost whispers is internal disturbances, adhyatmikam. Adhyatmikam, like the hunger, thirst, other emotions like anger, irritation, etc. And adi bhaudikam, the environmental disturbance. There could be wild animals, etc. So we ward off those disturbances, having appeased the heaven. Now you may wonder, by you and me sitting and chanting here, Shanti, will it impact? Of course it does impact. It does. Our prayer, our wishing Shanti for heaven, the heavenly disturbances, it makes an impact. And having invoked our subtle intellect, appeased our mind, made sure the environment is so conducive to undertake this voyage of the journey within, then we enter into the mantra, the first mantra.
सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम्.
Sahasra Purusha. Beautiful composition, beautiful expression. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha Sahasraksha. Sabhuming Vishwato Vritva Atyatishta Dashangulam. Sahasra Shirsha, as you have, by the way, I'm using the translation of Swami's translation, Veda Pushpanjali, all right? So we have sent those translations to you, those who may not have it. So the Purusha has got Sahasra Shirsha, 1,000 heads. Purusha has got 1,000 heads. What does it imply? What does it indicate? Sahasra, although it is 1,000, it is not to be taken literally as 1,000, but what is to be understood is thousands. So this verse is actually explaining the all-pervading, all-pervasive nature of supreme reality. 1,000 heads. It enlivens all the heads in the world. It enlivens, it says Sahasraksha, 1,000 eyes. Doesn't mean 1,000 eyes, thousands of eyes. Thousands of legs. Now, what does it indicate? Thousands of eyes represents what is Purusha? That Purusha, the cosmic being, the supreme reality, is that which enlivens all the organs of perceptions. Eye is one of the 5 organs of perceptions called Jnanendriyas. So by using one Jnanendriya, he is representing all the 5 Jnanendriya, that they are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. It is that, what is Purusha? That Purusha enlivens my organs of perception. That which enables me to speak is the same Purusha that enables you to hear. And 1,000 legs representing all the organs of actions in the universe. It is like saying electricity has 1,000 bulbs. Implication is that in all the bulbs, maybe millions of light bulbs in the world, it is the electricity that is enlivening that light bulb. That is Purusha. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, the word Purusha is not in the sense of a masculine gender, Purusha, which is the opposite of Stri. Here, the Purusha represents the cosmic being which has no gender. In fact, elsewhere in the Shastras, there is a mention that there is only one Purusha. Rest are all Stri. In fact, although you and me are masculine, human, male, but we are still a Stri. There's only one Purusha and rest are all Stri, even if you're a male. The word Stri means he who is in the clutches of three gunas. Sa, ta, ra, Stri. Sattva, tamas, and rajas. So if we are living under the clutches of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, although you and me may be male, but we are still as three. And where is the Purusha? Purusha is that supreme being, the divinity within you and within me that enlivens our organs of perception, the eyes, and the organs of action, hands, legs, genitals, organs of evacuation, and organ of speech. That which enlivens the eye, the ears, that which enlivens your personality is Purusha. And not only you, that which enlivens entire thousands of beings, their heads, their organs of perception, organs of action. Just to analyze differently, I'll invite you to watch this slide that I want to project. Enable attendee screen sharing. I have this host disabled attendee screen sharing. Okay, make me that participant. Yeah. Yeah, got it. Can't see the screen share. All right. Can you see? All right. So if you look at the slide there, Atman is the supreme divinity within, and Purusha is the same divinity that is all pervading the cosmic being. All right. So when Atman, the Purusha, function through your body, you become the perceiver and actor. You perceive various perceptions and various actions. So when the Purusha Suktam says, Purusha, Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, Sahasraksha, thousands of, the Purusha is in thousands of heads and thousands of eyes. It is that which enlivens the organs of perception. You become the perceiver. It is the same Purusha that enlivens the organs of action. You become the actor. So both the perception and action put together is your physical personality here. All right. When the same Atman enlivens your mind, you become the feeler. You feel various good and bad emotions. That is your emotional personality. When the same Atman enlivens your ego, that is your egotic personality. When the same Atman, the Purusha, enlivens your intellect, as I mentioned, there are two types of intellect. When it enlivens a gross intellect, you become the thinker, that is your intellectual personality, and contemplator, that is your spiritual personality. So when Purusha Suktam says 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 legs, what is to be understood is that it is the same Purusha that function through all the eyes, thousands of eyes, thousands of heads. It is all pervading. Sa bhuming vishwato vritaha. Having pervaded the whole earth, it is not only pervading this earth, it is beyond. And he says, Atyatishta dashangulam, literally translated, remain 10 fingers surplus. Beyond that, it is interpreted generally, it is beyond the 10 elements, the 5 subtle elements and the 5 gross elements. Everything in the world, animate or inanimate, is composed of these 5 elements, the gross and the subtle elements. All right. So when he says it is beyond the 5 dashangulam, or the 10 fingers, representing beyond the 5 elements of gross elements and the subtle intellect, which means it exists beyond the universe. So that divinity is not confined to enlivening mind and ears, organs of perceptions or organs of action. It exists beyond. It exists in all the 10 directions. What are the 10 directions? North, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, all right, northwest, southwest. That makes it 8 directions, and above and below, indicating it is all pervading. It is the all pervading reality. It is not confined to the realm of the time, space, and causation. Anything that we experience in the world confined to the realm of time, space, and causation. Anything that you conceive exists at a particular time, in a particular geographical location, and it is produced by a cause. Anything that is created by a cause. Whereas this Purusha is causeless. It has no creator of its own. In that sense, it exists beyond. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha. That Purusha with 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes. It is that divinity that enlivens all the heads to think. It is that divinity enlivens all the hearts, thousands of hearts, meaning multiples of thousands. It enlivens. It is that divinity enlivens your I. When you go to Kenopanishad, the master says, Shrotrasya Shrotram Mano Manaha Vachoha Vaju Chakshusa Chakshu. To borrow the idea from there, it is the eye of the eye. What is Purusha? What is God? What is supreme reality? It is the eye of the eye. It is the ear of the ear. It is the mind of the mind. Mano Manaha. So, what is actually seen? It is not the eye, but something beyond the eye that is seeing through the eye. When you are seeing me through the screen, and when you are listening to me through the audio device there, you're not listening with your ear. You're not seeing me through your eye. Eye is simply a fleshy organ. Behind the eye is your mind. Supposing you are looking at your television screen or computer screen, your eye is looking at it, but if your mind is preoccupied with some other thought, although your eyes are looking at the screen, still you may not see me. Why? Because the mind is preoccupied. So what is actually seeing? Not the eye, but the mind through the medium of the eye. Then you might wonder, is it the mind that is seeing? Not even the mind. Because the next, the same mantra, it says, Mano Manaha. It is the mind of the mind. So it is that supreme divine principle behind which all these 10 senses, that is what the supreme Purusha. And it exists beyond this limited existence that you and me are confined to. And then he continues the discussion in the next verse, which we will study tomorrow. In the meantime, those of you who have attended the Bhajagovindam, that is a couple of months ago that we have studied, it is a totally different dynamics. Study of Bhajagovindam. Bhajagovindam is an introductory textbook. It's a Prakarana Grantha, introducing the terminologies and the concepts to the Bhagavad Gita and the Veda, higher studies. So it is like the study of school subjects. Compare that to study of Purusha Suktam. Purusha Suktam is like a postgraduate text. So you will not find that dilution, that lightness in comparison to Bhajagovindam. This is rather heavy. So when you come to study the Purusha Suktam, what you need to do is that at least about 10-15 minutes before, you need to settle yourself, appease your mind, and get into that vibe of studying this. Whereas Bhajagovindam is much more light subjects. So you'll find me using various stories and analogies and jokes and examples, etc. Unlike here, the subject matter is rather terse. We try to make it light as much as possible by using analogies. So you need to reflect upon these ideas that we discussed. And from tomorrow onwards, at the end of each session, and we could take up a few questions, all right? Even if I maybe extend 5 minutes extra after the session to answer the question. So since we have I'm very glad to see about 55 attendees there, I think we could still have the opportunity to take up some questions. So if you have any questions today, you may want to WhatsApp Dipti, the Life Mastery Foundation, or you can pause the question tomorrow at the end of it. All right. So from tomorrow onwards, we'll take up questions at the end of the session so that you get some kind of clarity. All right. So as you know, the tradition is that when we conclude the chanting of the mantra, the Purusha Suktam, we conclude by Kshama Prarthana. So together, we will do Kshama Prarthana.
ॐ यदक्षरपदभ्रष्टं मात्राहीनं तु यद्भवेत् तत्सर्वं क्षम्यतां देव नारायण नमोऽस्तु ते विसर्गबिन्दुमात्राणि पदपादाक्षराणि च न्यूनानि चातिरिक्तानि क्षमस्व साईश्वर अपराधसहस्राणि क्रियन्ते हरनिष्ठं मया दासोऽयमिति मां मत्वा क्षमस्व साईश्वर अन्यथा शरणं नास्ति त्वमेव शरणं मम तस्मात् कारुण्यभावेन रक्ष रक्ष साईश्वर हरि ओम तत्सत् श्री साईश्वरार्पणमस्तु ओम शांति शांति शांति.
Thank you. Thank you. We look forward to meeting you tomorrow at the same time, at the same place. And we continue with the discussion of the second mantra onwards. Thank you. Sairam, have a safe day for every one of you there. Thank you.